I begin, I would like to pay my respects to the local Indigenous people. The Bunurong and the Wurundjeri people, they are the traditional custodians of this land where we're meeting upon today, and that's here in Berwick. So for this lesson we're going to be talking about seasons. Who can tell me what seasons that they know about? Yes, summer, autumn, winter, spring, lovely. How do we know when this season is occurring? Or how do we know when seasons come about? Yeah, you can feel it, so it can be cold or warm. Lovely, how else? Yeah, so by the different animals that are around, so what they're doing and where they are. Lovely. And how else? Yes, so what different plants or flowers are growing during a certain time. Wonderful. So the 4 seasons that you just described to me are actually the European seasonal calendar, and they don't quite fit with Australia very well. So we're going to be looking at the Indigenous people's calendar, and it's this one here. So it's their seasonal calendar. Now we're looking at this particular one because the Wurundjeri people and the Bunurong people, who are the custodian owners of this land, they follow this one here because it's native to Victoria in Melbourne. So we're going to go through some various key things for each season, and later we're going to be researching more into each season that you'll do by yourself. So we'll start off with the late summer here. Now as you can see, there's a picture of an eel up here, and this is because this season is the eel season. So it's where eels, they travel downstream towards the sea, so it's a great time to hunt them and to eat them for food. Then we head into the early winter, so you can see here that's a picture of an eagle, so it's the hawk eagle. Now the Indigenous people call this animal the bunjil. So the bunjil begins building his nest at this time, and it's also a bit of a cool period where lots of other birds also flock together. And then we move on to the deep winter. So it's getting colder here, and this is usually when the creeks and the rivers, they begin to flood. So then the Indigenous people would move upland, and they would begin they'll be hunting up there, and they would also build shelters. So up here we've got they call them willems, and so they have bark and sticks, and they build them to keep them sheltered from the wind and the rain during the very cold season. Then we move on to the pre-spring. So it's warming up a bit now. This is when all the flowers begin to bloom. So the first one is this wattle here. We know it as a silver wattle, but its actual Indigenous name is the muyam. And then this one down here, this also begins to bloom, and it's called the yellow box. And the nectar within this flower is actually really nutritious for you and quite tasty, apparently. Then we move on to the true springs. This is where it's getting a bit warm, but it's still a bit wet and windy, so sort of like our spring. And this is when this flower begins to bloom. They call this the Bunurong flower. And so an interesting fact is that there's a little tuber that they call. So once these yellow leaves fall off, there's a tuber, and they cook this in a basket in an earth oven, and it comes out producing a really dark sweet juice which you eat, which is a very common food source that they would have during this season. Then you move into the high summer. This is where it's really quite warm, and so then the Indigenous people would come down towards really reliable water sources, but it also meant that animals did as well. So then they would all congregate together, and it would be a great time for hunting and also swimming in the cool water. They would also head up to the sea area where these sort of plants or flowers would be around there. So this one is called the pig face, and as well as this beautiful flower, also has these green little leaves here that you would eat, and it's actually quite salty. And then we have this one here. It's called the coast beard heath, and they eat the little fruits off it, but also the leaves are very much like a lettuce. as they're quite watery and you'd eat them and they're very nutritious for you as well.